The key to a successful business is having a great digital marketing plan. A great marketing plan in general, but especially a digital marketing plan in today's age. However, another secret to having the most powerful business possible and to be able to compete with your larger competitors, especially if you're in a small business space, you want to pay attention to this episode, because the key to a successful business outside of the marketing is also your operations. That's why I have a guest today that's going to enlighten us and teach us what are the key elements of having a strong operations behind your business. So with that, episode 34 starts right now.
Hello, and welcome to Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. If you are not getting the results you are looking for from your digital marketing efforts, this is the podcast for you. And now, here's the host of our show, the local business guy himself, Frank Deming.
Hello, everyone. This is Frank Deming, the local business guy, and welcome to today's episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses. Now, before I introduce you to today's guest and get us on with today's content, I would like to do a couple of housekeeping items. And I want, number one, I want to let you know that if you are thinking about any technical things that we've talked about on the show, any past episodes that you're probably confused about and you want to try to implement it on your own business, this is the perfect time to give us a call at 888-416-7752 or send us an email at info@lbmsllc.com, and one of our marketing specialists will help you out with whatever question you may have and tie it back to your specific industry. Also, if you want to be a guest on our show, if you got a message that you want our audience to listen to, you just want to follow that same process, 888-416-7752, or send us an email at info@lbmsllc.com. Okay, I got one last thing before I introduce you to our great guest. And that is this. If you want to start your own podcast, if you've been thinking about it, it's a great way of getting my message out there. I want you guys to give Buzzsprout a shout. Buzzsprout is absolutely the best way and easiest way to start and launch your own podcast. Why? Easy. They give you a really, really cool tool that you can distribute your information to all the major podcast directories. I'm talking about Apple Podcasts. I'm talking about Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, just to name a few, and Spotify, basically. So not only that it's easy to use, they are actually masters at it. Why? Because they've helped over 100,000 people over the years launch their own podcasts. So if you've been thinking about it, you're on the fence, I ask you to give them a shout. And there's a link to their website in the show notes. I want you to go to that link, click on it, and when you do, you're actually going to receive a $20 gift card from Amazon. That actually gives them an indication that we sent you. And then, that's a way for them to say thank you for checking us out and also let them know that we sent you. All right. So Buzzsprout, the absolute best way to start a podcast. All righty then. So I want to introduce you to today's guest. As I said in the pre-intro, she is I consider her a operations genius. She's working on a couple of she has impressed me tremendously with her operation knowledge that I wanted to have on the show, and she and I always have a lot of great conversations, very interesting conversations in person. So I wanted to introduce her to my audience. Her name is Tracey Sanguiliano. I think I pronounced that correctly, Tracey. Am I correct?
You're close. Sanguiliano. That's all right. It took you a while. It
Sanguiliano.
took me a while as well. So, like I
Sanguiliano.
said,
Sorry about that.
it's a nice Irish name, right?
There you go. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses. I am going to change things up because, as I said in the pre-intro, you can have the best marketing strategy out there, but if you don't have the body, which I call the operations of your business, you really are not going to be successful. So it takes a lot to run a business, and operations is truly one of the most important keys of it. So before we get into the content, I have a ton of questions I want to ask you. Why don't you introduce yourself other than your name and give us some insights as to who you are and why we should listen to you.
Absolutely. So, hi, everyone. So excited to be here. So who I am. So I am a mom of two kids that does not like to sit still. I got my start in operations right after college when I joined a rental car company and learned the ins and outs of running that business, worked my way all the way up to the top, running an entire region for them. So always having to know about planning, forecasting, budgeting, but also people. Understanding who you have on your team, as well as what you need to do to get to where they need to go. Then I switched gears completely, shocked the world, left that lucrative business and went into veterinary medicine, where I was for 13 years, running full service veterinary hospitals, from the general practice hospitals where you go get your vaccines to the 24-hour facilities. My main focus was operations, and my job was to get the business from 0 to 100. All of these locations, I started from the ground up. So I got my feet wet, and I learned how to create an amazing organization from the ground up, making this business successful. I've brought businesses from 0 revenue to 10 million revenue in less than a year.
Wow,
so that's really my background is, how do you make a business from a little nothing to a very big something, with having the right people, the right operational plan, policies, procedures, and focusing on that customer experience at the same time. And that's what brings me to you today.
So a quick question. So you said a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about. So that sounds a lot like business development, BD. Or is it, what is operations and business development the same? Is it different? Because a lot of what you said sounds a lot like business development.
Yeah, I mean, I personally feel that business development and operations go hand in hand. You have to develop the business, but then you have to operate the business. If I bring in all the business, but I have no idea how to run the business, it's going to fall apart. It's not sustainable if you're not building practices, policies, procedures to create a business that's going to last. So that's where I kind of crossed over. So I love business development. I love growing a business, but I also love the opportunity to take that business and make it something that's remarkable, to make it something that people talk about and want to come back to over and over and over again. So that's the operations part. But in order to get there, to need operations, you've got to build it. So that's where, yes, I have expertise in business development, and I enjoy that as well. But where my passion lied was in developing the people, creating the business that was sustainable, that could year after year. That one location I talked about that went from 0 to 10 million, by the time I left it was only 3 years of operation, was about $32 million a year in revenue. Wow. And it was just me. I was it. There was no one, I had a team below me, but I was the one running the show, creating all the ideas, implementing, focusing. If something wasn't working, we had to rip it apart, start all over again. So it was like every day was something new. And that's where, the one thing I can say is that operations is not build it and then walk away. It's something that you have to continually work at to make sure that you're moving forward with your business as the entire world moves forward.
I agree. I agree. That's interesting that you tied business development to operations, because I've always tied business development into marketing, but that's because I have a biased opinion.
I mean, marketing's a part of it all. I mean, when you
Right,
look at
right.
running a business, it all intertwines.
Yeah,
Yes, marketing is part of business development. I think marketing comes first, then you got
right.
business development, and then you got operations.
Okay. All right. That's a good way of putting it. You have to layer it into, yeah, I got you. Awesome. Another thing you said is that you're talking about getting your feet wet. Interesting you said that, because our initial interview was canceled because you went and got your feet wet at the beach. How was that experience?
Well, you know what? This, yeah. So this summer has been challenging. I have two young kids,
Yeah.
and I'm trying to make this summer remarkable for them in a sense that they don't think about everything this quarantine has done. So an opportunity presented itself for us to go down to the beach for a couple of days, from a past client of mine who called me and said, "Hey, I have this. You want it?" So we went, and it was an amazing experience. But, even in life, I feel like I'm always operating. I'm always finding ways to keep it organized, to make sure I have a plan in place. So the beach was absolutely gorgeous. It was probably the best day of the summer. I felt bad. I mean, we could have probably had this conversation. You would have heard the waves in the background. But I wanted to make sure that it was an amazing experience for you as well. So, that's why I felt it was important for me to be honest and transparent and say, look, here's where I'm at. Can we still do it?
Yeah.
But I appreciate your flexibility in
Of
allowing me to
course.
reschedule.
Nah, it's all good. It's all good. I just wanted to mention it because I always have fun when I talk to you, Tracy. You have such a great a great personality, and you swing punch. You swing with the big boys. So that's good. All right. So out of curiosity, do you think operations is generic? Here's what I mean by that. So let's say because you've worked with Fortune 500 companies, right?
Mhm.
So what is the difference in most of my audience, as you know, is a smaller operations, nail salons, restaurants, 3-man attorney firm, law firms, etc. That's typically where I work with. What is the difference between working with a Fortune 500 company and someone like what I just mentioned from an operational standpoint? Is it different? Is it same? What's your take on that?
So my take on that is that operations is generic to a degree. So for the nail salon, they still need operating procedures. How are they opening the business? How are they closing the business? How are they running it? What's their customer experience plan? So you have a lot of, and same Fortune 500 is not much different, but they're going to be adding in layers. So some of the companies I work for, we needed a safety and evacuation plan. You probably don't
Right.
need a safety and evacuation plan for a nail salon, but we needed one. We needed a plan for a national emergency. So like with what's happening now, there was a plan in place. Like, hey, if the whole world shuts down, how are we going to operate this 24-hour facility? So I think there is a portion of operations that is very generic. It's a plug and play type. You need A, B, C, and D. But the bigger the organization, the more layers you have, then you have to add different elements, the chain of command. So for example, at the hospitals, if there was a client issue, a client went off the deep end, okay,
Mhm.
I needed a plan as to what was to happen when that occurred. I wasn't there 24 hours a day, but we were open 24 hours a day. So I had to create a plan of what the team was to do if something really bad happened and they needed me immediately. So
Right.
that's where I had to write that. So that is where it differs. I can't imagine a nail salon or a small firm of lawyers needing that. You never know. But that's where you have to look at the business and create that operating plan that suits the needs of that business. But there
Right.
is going to be generic parts.
Okay. No, I agree. Well, I was just kind of curious because a lot of times, like I've noticed when I take on these firms, they don't really have a plan in place in general that just from a marketing standpoint. Okay, I get you 4 leads. What is your plan on operating these 4, of nurturing these 4 leads? Do you have email marketing in place? Do you have a follow-up phone system? Yeah, they don't take that into consideration. So, just as minimum as that is what we're looking for, because a lot of times, unfortunately, these folks, since they're not prepared from an operation standpoint, they can't handle the business, and then they end up canceling because they just can't handle it. So, is it advisable, in your opinion, to sit down with them prior to them and say, okay, what does your operations look like? Let me find out, but ask those type of questions, or is it just too soon to ask those questions in the beginning?
I think it's never too soon. I mean, one of the things I used to always say to my teams, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail.
Right.
So there's never a wrong time to talk about what's your plan. If you're starting out with a group and, okay, we're going to do the X, A, B, and C. What's going to be your plan? And how are we going to handle the influx of business? So making sure that they're ready for it, because nothing's worse, because that's not going to create a good client experience for you if all of a sudden all this business comes in and they can't handle it and they implode on themselves. So making sure that they have a plan, talking it through with them, I absolutely 100% would recommend. That's what I do. When I started a new service at the hospital, I would sit down with that clinician and say, okay, let's write out your schedule. Let's talk about what if an unexpected emergency pops in. How are we handling it? So we wrote out what their plan was for every possible scenario so that we knew what to expect, and always expect the unexpected. If you expect that your business is going to grow by 25%, 50%, what does that look like for you? Do you need to add another person? And right. That's where you gotta dig down deep. It's not just about, how are you going to answer your phones? It's, okay, what point do you think you need to hire someone to handle the influx of phone calls?
Yeah.
Is it 10% growth? Is it 15% growth? What does that look like? So when you're looking at operations, you're also planning for the future. You're looking 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12 months down the line. What does it look like? And then you build it,
I actually have that question was actually for me, because so because and I guess I'm asking you for your advice on this one, because there are times when they say, well, no, I just want to get started and see what happens. In your opinion, should I just say, forget it, call me when you're ready, or should I take them on and then adjust? What's your opinion on that?
So my opinion would be to influence them and say, in my experience, an organization that has a plan in place for when the growth comes will succeed and will continue to grow. So why don't we work on this together? Why don't we, talk about, let me give you some ideas. We'll start, but let's revisit it. Maybe you set a plan in place of, okay, in 30 days, we're going to sit down, but these are the things I would recommend you think about. And you can lay it out for them. If I was working with you, Frank, as your operations person, this is one of the things I would implement of, let's make sure we have a plan. If you think about a client, and if they were able to say to their friend, oh, this guy, Frank, not only did he help me grow my business, but he helped me to think about planning for the growth. Right. He helped me to develop or make sure I had a plan in place. So that way, when the growth happened, I was ready. And there was no stumbling, because nothing is worse when an organization grows too fast and they're not ready for it. A lot of mistakes happen.
Right.
You may get through it as a business, but your customers will remember. And maybe they'll be graceful and say, hey, they were just getting started, but maybe they won't. And maybe they'll tell a friend that, hey, I tried them out and it was a terrible experience because they were not able to handle the volume.
Yeah.
And people remember. Let's face it, when you're going to try a new restaurant or go someplace, are you Googling reviews? Are you seeing what people are saying? So this is what you don't want. You don't want people to say, hey, they couldn't handle the business. It was too busy. They were rude. They were this. So have a plan in place so that way as the growth comes, and maybe I'm a big fan of hire them, they will come. Have someone ready to go. So you're training them up. And when the business hits, you're ready. And maybe it's a short-term hit, but then when the business grows, you're already ready. You're not scrambling. When you have to hire, you're desperately hiring for things, mistakes will happen and you're hiring the wrong person. So if you find the right person, you snatch them up and you build the business. I always have hired ahead, I called it. If I knew I wanted to be here in 6 months, I made sure I had the people in place so I could have them trained and ready to go.
Yeah. That spurs on a couple of other questions for me, because I have been, I agree with what you're saying, but here's the problem. It scares the bejeebies out of a lot of companies when you say that. There's a lot of fear there, because if it doesn't work, now they've got an extra, added payroll that they don't know what to do. So that fear is real. So it's very difficult to, in my opinion, it's very difficult to suggest that and have it fail. So how would you combat that? And this is a real life scenario that actually happened to me maybe 3 years ago. Not to me, but to a client of mine who told me that exactly, almost verbatim. And I didn't have a comeback. What would you, in that situation, would have come back with?
So a couple of things I would talk about is temp to hire, of hire someone part-time, have a conversation with them saying, hey, we want to go here, help us get there. So you get the buy-in of that associate to build it. That's the one idea I would say. I would never force someone to do it, but I would say, that's fine. I want you to have it in your mindset that this is something you want to look at. So start looking for the person. And maybe you don't pull the trigger, or maybe you hire them as like a locum, something where they come in one day a week just so you're training them, no guarantee. And you let them know, hey, I want to see what you can do, but this is where we're at. You do stand the chance of losing that perfect person. But you also stand the chance of that perfect person rising to the challenge and helping you to grow the business. So I think for me, it would depend on what the business is and what the, weigh the risk versus, okay, so don't, and that's fine, but make sure it's in the back of your head, because and I would stay on top of it. So once I started seeing growth, I would say, okay, I'm just letting you know you've grown by 10%, 15%. Now I'd also do the math. Okay. So and we used to do this all the time in both veterinary and the rental car. If you have to replace someone who quits from burnout, it costs you triple what it would have cost to hire a person ahead of time, because now you've lost someone, okay, who is well-trained and ready to go. And now you have to hire someone very quickly, maybe pay more money because you're desperate to get them on board. And then you have to train them. So during that time period you're training them, you're possibly losing revenue.
You're losing money, yeah.
No, that's where you got to weigh all the outcomes.
Yeah. But, I got to tell you, and this has nothing to do with operations. It has everything to do with mindset. I got to tell you, if someone does not believe in it and you, quote unquote, convince them to do it, it won't work, because in their mind, it's not going to do it. And they only did it to, please you or whatever. And so I backed up, because I was like, you know what, if you don't believe in this, then that's fine. But that's what I feel, because he didn't have the tools in place. It was a dentist. I still remember this like it was it was like 2, maybe 3 years ago now. And he did not want to invest. He didn't want to invest in the tool. He didn't want, so I didn't take him on because it was not going to work,
And I agree with your decision. I do believe that you have to have someone vested in the decision. They have to be part of the plan.
Yeah.
And that was something I always did when I was creating a business plan or an operations plan. I always had my team involved in that planning, because the more they felt a part of it, the more apt they were to drive it.
Yeah.
So I agree with your decision there. It's, if someone is that stubborn and unwilling to see the possibilities, I would question whether they have the ability to succeed to a certain degree, because you have to be open to all possibilities.
Yeah. That's true. Awesome stuff. Awesome sauce. And I got to tell you, man, it's never a conversation that you and I have without that shameless plug of work with LVMS. So I just wanted to throw that in there. I like the way you smoothed it in there. That was pretty cool.
This is what I do. This is why I'm good at operations, because I
Yeah.
know, look, I love dealing with people. I love talking with people, getting to know them, getting inside their head, finding out what makes them tick, and then how I can help them.
Right.
So, I like to ask questions. A lot of times I just listen. I just listen to people, and then I'm like, this person might be able to do X, Y, and Z. So it's, to be good at operations, you have to have that ability to think abstractly, but also you have to be able to think logically in what makes sense. But you always have to think outside the box, because not everything fits inside a nice little neat little box. And so to be really good at it, I do believe you have to be able to kind of see, what's possible.
Yeah. So give me 3 to 5 tips on what you would tell I'm going to say nail salon, because you're in the nail industry now.
Mm-hmm. I am.
Give me 3 to 5 tips of where you would tell a nail salon. Let's keep COVID out of this. Let's say we're running regular operations. That is, say a nail salon that's in a very busy mall, and they're small. There's in that same mall, there's a bigger salon that maybe this nail salon just does nails and maybe a couple other things. The other one does pedicures as well. They don't. So how would you position this nail salon, if you were being the operations person, on how to maybe take a bite out of that other bigger place in the same mall?
So one thing I would recommend is observing, what makes the other salon tick, what makes them different. The second thing I would say is to create a plan that sets you apart from the other group. So what do they do? For a nail salon, I think of what's important to the consumer. So it's cleanliness, it's client experience,
Yep.
and it's I think time. Everybody, when I talk to people about what they hate about the nail salon, they say, I hate waiting. I hate how I feel like I'm just a number. They're just trying to fill the chair as many times as they can. And I hate when the technicians are not experienced enough. So when you're looking at all those things, what does that look like? So for the group that's going to be wanting to grow, so what's your client experience plan? Do you have a person who that's your sole job of talking to the clients? How was everything? What can we do differently? And while that may seem silly at a nail salon, it matters. When I talk to people and I'm watching everyone online talk about where they're going to get their pedicure after this whole, quarantine, what's important and what I see people talking about is the quality that they're taking, the pride they're taking in their organization, and the care they're taking.
Right.
So that's what I would recommend is let's take a look at what you're doing. For the owner, I would recommend don't be the smartest person in the room. Hire someone who you're comfortable with telling you, being transparent and honest with you about what they recommend you do and being open to that. Because that's where I see people get so in their head of what they think should happen. They're unable to listen to someone else who might just have an insight that could change them from a mediocre establishment to an establishment that people are raving about. And that's what you want. You want raving fans. You do not want people to be like, they're okay if you need a quick manicure. But I would recommend this if you want an experience.
So you're going to change their mindset, their thinking of, because a lot of times, and this is a real life example. That's why I'm asking you this. This happened when I was in Maryland. There was a small salon that was getting their ass chewed to them by this other bigger salon in the same mall because they had pedicures and all that, and people didn't want to just go for a manicure. They wanted a manicure, pedicure. So but I think their issue was mostly what you're saying. the lady was not friendly because
Mhm.
my ex-wife used to go there, and she used to tell me, "Man, that lady's mean." You know, she was kind of like the soup Nazi in Seinfeld. But I think it was the experience more so than the fact that she was smaller than the other salon,
Mhm.
because she just kept
Yep.
saying, "Oh, they got bigger space, blah 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 blah." You know, that's what she was complaining about, and it had nothing to do with that. It
It's the
has to do,
experience. Yeah.
yeah, it's the experience. Because my ex-wife told me that she's nasty. Yeah,
Mhm.
she doesn't know how to talk to people, so you're gonna lose customers like that. So I'm just kind of curious because I know you're in the whole nail stuff. If you want to talk about that later, we can. And B, I just wanted your. I know you're an operations genius, so hey,
Well, I mean, I think there's a big difference between a service-based industry and a product-based industry. So when you're
correct.
looking at operations in a service base, the most important thing is what type of service experience are you providing? A product is a product. Sometimes products sell themselves, and that, the industry I'm in now, it's a product and service, if you think about it. So it's combining the best of two. I can do nothing about the product, but I certainly can control what my experience is like for my clients. And that's what
Correct.
everyone has in their control. Being mean or being known as mean is not going to drive people into your industry, into your location. You have to have people say, "Oh my God, let me tell you about the experience."
Yeah.
You walk in, they're asking if you want a coffee, tea, or something else. I mean, it's just an outstanding experience. And that's what people want. They
Yeah.
want an experience.
So the soup Nazi, you know that's a true thing, right? Because I used to
The
live.
soup Nazi?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I lived in the city for a while.
I used to live in the city as well. So I actually went to that place. So you're saying the soup Nazi is an anomaly?
I am,
Because he was
honestly,
nasty. He was
he was
not.
incredibly,
Yeah, he
but,
was terrible. But his soup was awesome.
and also Seinfeld made him.
No, but he was popular. Seinfeld made him blow up. But even before the Seinfeld episode, because I remember going to him, and then when I saw the episode, I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's the guy. I've been there." I remember telling my ex-wife at the time, "Yeah, I've been that place," and she's like, "Really?" Yeah. After that, he just blew up. But
So,
he was always famous, though.
I think he created a thing. You remember the restaurant Krabby Dick's?
I do
I
not.
think. Okay, so Krabby Dick's is a restaurant. It's a chain restaurant, and I don't even know if it's in existence. But you would go in there, and the servers were told to be rude to you. Okay, but it made it an experience.
Really?
So people wanted to experience it. So same thing with the soup Nazi. It made it an experience. Maybe it wasn't like the best experience, but people were like, "No way, this guy's that rude, but his soup's amazing. I'm gonna go." People wanted to see if it really was true, if the hype was really there.
Right.
So I think yes, it's an anomaly to a certain degree. But I do believe that it was created because people are like, "Oh my God, I went to this soup place and the guy yelled at you and he's like the soup Nazi." And people were like, "No way, I got to check it out." And then they would go. And then people realize, "Hey, the soup is fantastic. Can I deal with?" So he's another example of product and service.
Yeah.
So his yelling and his berating people made it an experience. Baffling to me why but his soup was just that good. I mean, I went there.
It's pretty decent. Yeah, it was pretty good.
And his soup and I love soup. So I'm like, well, I love a good bowl of soup.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go check it out.
Yeah,
So
especially in the wintertime.
Yeah, but I don't think that same mentality would work in a nail salon. People want a pampering experience. They want to feel special. They want to feel, They want to go in. I hate, prior to, my new company, I would hate going to the nail salon and feeling rushed. And I was paying you money to do my nails and my toes. I didn't want to feel like they would come over and start doing my nails as they were doing my toes. I'm like, no, stop. That's not part of my experience. I want to sit here in the chair and relax and have the little massage chair, work out all my kinks and just sit here and just, go into a zone for 45 minutes and then go get my nails done. Right. But in their mind, they're like, we only care about the money and we want to rush this through so we can get the next person in the chair. I stopped going to places like that. Right. I started going to places that made it an experience. And so that's where the difference.
So that brings me to my next question. I'm going to switch gears from industries and same line of questioning, but a different industry. And I asked this to about, I want to say 30, maybe 40% of my guests. So just kind of see, and I kind of know where you're going with this, but just to clarify, let's say you go to a Ruth's Chris restaurant, and you know the food is average. It's just whatever. It's steak. It's good, but it's steak. Whatever. And it's a $250 meal. And then you go to say a TGI Fridays. I'm going to go from extreme to extreme, and the steak is phenomenal. Actually, better than Ruth's Chris's. And but the service sucked. Ruth's Chris was and that meal, by the way, cost you $85. So Ruth's Chris was $250. The food was okay, but the service was amazing. They treated you like royalty. Would you go back to Ruth's Chris?
I would.
Because
for me, because the experience, and I've never had a bad steak at Ruth's Chris, but I think I would go back, because to me, the experience, like, I want to feel special. I don't want to feel rushed. And while, TGIF, in my mind, that's where I go for a quick meal. And nothing's more frustrating when you get really bad service, because a server has 20 tables.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not because they're terrible, and maybe they are, it could be that they're in the wrong field. But for the most part, a lot of times I find with those chains, they don't have, and you always hear whenever you can't, get a refill on your drink, and you're like, what is going on that I can't get a refill on my drink? And they're like, oh, I'm the only one here, and I'm servicing all the tables. That's bad operational planning.
Right.
Because you're setting that server, who might be a really great server, up for failure.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I wouldn't blame the server, but I would, and sadly, I would probably say, well, this is what I expect. I expect great service at Ruth's Chris and a great steak. So if I had a bad steak one time, I might be like, you know what? I still think it's a great experience. I'm going to go back. But if I had a great steak and a bad experience at TGIF, I might be like, I expect bad service from here, because they don't operationally plan.
Right.
So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that's where I look at,
I'm actually taking a survey. It's so funny. Of the people I've asked, not one has said, TGIF. So it's all about, it seems like everyone's experience based.
Yeah.
So for bringing it back to business from a general standpoint, what that tells most of my audience, and I'm hoping you're taking notes to this, is that you as a business owner have to create the best experience possible for your customers, no matter what that is. So even if there was a problem, I had a dentist one time he was really, really, I really praise this guy. He's not just a great dentist, he was also a great business owner. He has a couple of issues with a couple of hygienists, and he did not sleep on this thing. He nipped it in the bud right away, and got offered training and a whole bunch of stuff. He didn't get rid of the people. I think he got rid of one, but he was offered more training and this and that, and all of a sudden his reviews started going up. So that's what businesses do. So you got to adjust. My whole mantra of my business, Local Business Marketing Solutions, is all about, we are giving you a competitive advantage, and it helps you also compete against the big boys. One of the things you have to do to compete against the big boys is you have to do what the big boys are willing to do. And some of that is increase your operations, which is what we're talking about today. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you for coming. If you have any other things that you want to say, is there anything that I missed that you think will help my audience?
No, I think The one thing I would add to what you just said is, when I look at my business with Color Street right now,
Right.
is that I had to pivot and adjust the way I went about the business. Color Street blew up when COVID started. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But that also meant that they added a ton more stylists to their team. Okay.
Right.
So now I needed to pivot and adjust how I ran my business. It became more customer focused. What can I do to help you? How can I make your experience, like following up with customers? And I do firmly believe a company, in order to survive in all types of environments and climates, is that you need to be willing to pivot and adjust. And, when you look at the big boys, yeah, maybe you don't have the money to throw at things, but you do have one thing. You have your ability to change your mindset, pivot the way you think, and focus on your business and go for it.
Right.
A big corporation, sometimes there's a lot more loops and things you got to jump through. When it's your own business, you have the decision to change the way your business is going, nobody else.
Correct.
And I think that's what makes being a small business the best place to be right now, because you don't have a lot of hoops and people and layers to dig through to get to what is right. You just have to be willing to say, okay, this isn't working. What do I need to do to change it? And that's where someone like yourself comes in, having that ability and that experience to say, here's what I recommend.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's the difference, because I think small business is the way to go. That's why I started my business back in 2007. I got tired of working 90 hours a week. And
for someone else.
Now I'm working 100 hours a week, but I'm loving it.
Yeah, but it's yours. At the end of the day, what you have is yours. And I think that's what I decided to do. I mean, I was working 70, 80 hours a week, building someone else's dream.
Yeah.
So it's, sometimes you got to take stock in your value and your worth and realize that you are more valuable to yourself than to anyone else. So, make you a priority, work with organizations like yourself and do things like that. But at the end of the day, do what's going to help you feel more successful. I want my kids to look back and say, my mom worked hard, but at the end of the day, she was excited. She was passionate. What she was doing was what she wanted to do. And that's what's important.
Yeah. Yeah. And good at it too. One last thing I forgot to mention. I mean, you mentioned this briefly before we go. Tell us about your business. What, I mentioned a couple of things about the nails. Why don't you tell the audience what you're working on these days?
Sure. No problem. So, ironically, thanks to COVID, I landed myself as an independent stylist with Color Street. Last June, I started way before COVID even started. But I decided to leave my company that I was working for, where I was working 70, sometimes 80 hours a week, for a different opportunity. And then with COVID, that opportunity kind of fell apart. So here I am going, oh no, what am I going to do? So Color Street is a company that's just turned 3 years old, and it is a revolutionary product that allows women to get salon quality nails at a fraction of the cost that they do themselves at home. It takes about 10, 15 minutes to do a manicure that looks like I got it at a salon. And the price factor is so reasonable that it's affordable. So a year later, I have a team of 115 working with me. We have fun every day. We get on Zoom calls. We talk about business strategies. It's a sisterhood. We work together. We build each other up. We don't tear each other down. It's an amazing organization with a founder that is like no one else I've ever worked with. For last week, he sent me 50 long stem red roses just to say thank you.
Oh, wow.
I have never worked for an organization that sent me flowers just to say thank you.
Right.
So that it speaks volumes to who this man is. He's passionate about his product and what he created. And he created a product that is unbelievable. And if you haven't tried Color Street, I highly recommend you try it, whether it's with me or another stylist. I prefer me, but
I'm going to drop the link. I'm going to drop the link on the show notes so you can check out Tracey.
It's worth trying. And I'm not saying you have to give up the salons. You can do it in conjunction. And many of my clients go to the salons and use Color Street so they can spice up their manicure. Right. It's just a product that's not going anywhere. It's only going to get better. We have new revolutionary products going to be launching throughout the year. We'll be launching in Canada later in 2020, early 21.
Awesome.
So this company is primed and ready to explode across international markets.
Awesome. Actually, my girlfriend, I've bought a few from you, as you know. My girlfriend loves it. She's been telling all her sisters up in Boston about it. So, and I gave them all your links. So let's see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, she loves it because it like you said, she puts it on and it lasts forever. And she's always working with her hands. She's always cooking. She's always cleaning. She's always doing a whole bunch of stuff. It's not like she's sitting around. And she loves the way it stays on. Whereas the other day she put on something else, like just a regular nail polish, and I think the next day it chipped or something like that, or maybe that same night. So
it's time for you to get some more for her.
Yeah, no. But here's the thing: I'm not going down that rabbit hole again. I say, hey, here's the link. Tell me what it is, and I'll get it. Because she was like, well, I don't like this color, but I like. It was a few that she liked, a few that she didn't like, So now she's a big girl; she can pick it out.
All right. She can always reach out to me directly, and I have a nice inventory that I'll be happy to show her.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Maybe we could meet up at the parking lot again, like we did last time.
There you go.
That's another conversation for another time, man. That's the go-getter that Tracey is. So anyway, I'm going to drop a link to her website. You should check her out. And if you have any questions about it, just leave a comment here on the show notes here, and I'll make sure that Tracey gets it. Anyway, any last parting words before we say goodbye to these nice folks? You're good to go?
Thank you for having me. Everyone that's out there, just go and get it. Don't wait for your destiny to come to you. Just go out and get it. Find a way, work with Frank. He's an amazing marketing genius. I think we'd make a great pair.
Yes,
so I'm still working on that with him. So just keep swimming. That's all I got to say. Just keep swimming.
Well, thanks a lot, Tracey.
No problem, Frank. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care and bye for now. And folks, I will see you next week with another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Business. Take care and bye for now. Peace out, everyone.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Marketing Solutions for Local Businesses, the podcast where you will discover all the latest and greatest digital marketing tools, tips, and strategies you will need to implement in order to stay ahead of your competition. Don't forget, any links that were mentioned during the broadcast will be available to you in the show notes, so be sure to grab them while you have the chance. Incidentally, if you have any topics that you would like for us to discuss on the show, be sure to send an email to the email provided in the show notes, or click the Contact Us link and let us know what topic you would like us to help you with, and we'll be sure to add it to our schedule. If you would like for Frank and his team to look at your digital marketing presence and give you a free evaluation, simply click the Request a Free Consultation link in the show notes to get a hold of them. That being said, until our next episode, make it a successful digital marketing day. Peace out.